Is $25 still my price target for Kadena's native cryptocurrency called KDA during this bull run? The answer is yes. And even though nothing I say is financial advice, it may be hard to believe as of right now because, all the good pump that we saw, or should I say the good pump that we saw when it comes to KDA not too long ago, a lot of the, you know, upside has pretty much been lost at this point because take a look at KDA, the prices, of course, gone down by a lot, along with a bunch of other altcoins, even Bitcoin is going down as of right now. But that doesn't diminish the fact that when it comes to Kadena, it's still a very legendary layer 1 blockchain, and I think arguably it's actually one of the best of all time. Now, this may be hard to believe because, of course, the price of KDA isn't showcasing that, but when I take a look at Kadena, it's very scalable, very fast, very fantastic overall. It's just much more dynamic than a bunch of its competition. Yes, I get it's kind of a small project, but really, even though there's a lot of layer 1s out there, not that many are good, really, in my opinion, because Kadena stands on a league of its own in a sense that it's this, relatively speaking, small layer 1 blockchain, but then it's actually amazing in terms of its fundamentals. It's kind of rare we see that. The only other comparable option, I would say, that has kind of like more or less the same market cap in a sense, but then still very amazing fundamentals, is another layer 1 blockchain called Casper. That's something else I'm very bullish on. Kind of the same as Kadena, in the same position. Very amazing, but then kind of small. But then I don't mind that because the way I view it is that the lower something is, the more room it has to grow. Keep in mind, Kadena, people would often argue that this can't thrive in the future. This can't do good because if we take a look at PACT, right? PACT, the programming language used in Kadena smart contracts, people like to say that this is a major hindrance for the future of Kadena. They think that it's too hard, it's too complicated for developers to use, so then Kadena can't have a good future. But I'm going to disagree on that because if, let's say, a developer wants to build something on a place, they'll find a way to do it, in my opinion. And it's not like it's impossible or something like that. I mean, they wouldn't make something that is overly difficult. And when you think about it, let's say a developer, let's say it's their full-time job, I highly doubt that they're going to find it confusing. Maybe to the average individual who may not have, studied this or been in this space, maybe to them it may seem complicated in some cases. I'm not sure because a lot of people like to say that. But for whatever reason, people think it's very difficult, but I just disagree with that. Like, if I was, let's say, a basketball player, right? Am I going to be like, yeah, nah, I'm not going to try to shoot any 3-pointers because it's difficult? I'm only going to stick with 2-pointers. I mean, come on. If I was like in the NBA or something like that, that's not an excuse anymore. It's like for these developers, if they're good, seeing PACT is complicated or difficult, that's not going to be an excuse. Really, that's the way you take a look at it. It's not going to be something that's going to be like, oh, we can't use Kadena because of this. Nah, I disagree with that. Kadena still has very good qualities. It's still very fantastic. And I just don't think PACT is going to be difficult for these developers to use, at least moving forward, even as of right now still. And if you take a look at it, a member of the Kadena advisory team is somebody by the name of Dr. Stuart Haber. And yes, Dr. Stuart Haber is actually allegedly the most cited author in Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin white paper. I mean, just let that sink in. The most cited author in Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin white paper. So you got to think about that. This is how amazing someone like Dr. Stuart Haber is. He knows a thing or two, of course, because keep in mind, Dr. Stuart Haber is the co-inventor of blockchain. I mean, just let that sink in. The co-inventor of blockchain. Can you imagine all the other projects that Dr. Stuart Haber could have really dedicated himself to? But then again, he's part of the advisory team of Kadena. That says something. Now, people may think, oh yeah, it's a marketing gimmick. They're doing this just to create attention when it comes to Kadena. It doesn't mean it's good. Well, even if it was a marketing gimmick, it's working. Personally, for me, it's like, for instance, I see someone using shoes that I like, let's say a very famous individual. If I like that, does it mean it's a marketing gimmick? No, right? It's called advertising. It works. Why not? I would do that. Like, for instance, if I saw a very famous individual using a pair of shoes that I did like, or a very famous individual using a t-shirt that I did like, or whatever the case may be, wouldn't that be okay if, let's say, I'm a fan of their product, or let's say I'm a fan of their movies, or whatever the case may be, or let's say I like the way they play golf or something like that. It's just really different, right? Depending on the scenario, but I'm just saying, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's called good advertising, and even though this may be indirect, I think it's working nonetheless. Not to mention, if we take a look at someone like Will Martino and as well as Stuart Popejoy, the two founders of Kadena. They're very amazing in their own right because, right, they actually developed JP Morgan's first ever blockchain, otherwise now known as JPM coin. They played a very vital role in that. So really, if you take a look at something like, the co-founders of Kadena, or should I say the founders, right? It really showcases that this is a very special project. And if KDA were to go to the price of $25, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $7.5 billion, which I don't think is too bad, personally, right? We've seen BNB reach over $100 billion in market cap back in 2021. You've seen Dogecoin reach over 80 billion also back in 2021. I don't think this is too much to ask for, especially for like a very good layer one blockchain. I just don't see why its native cryptocurrency would have a difficult time doing that. Even we do know that usually as a worst case scenario, typically altcoins, they usually again peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. Now, the last Bitcoin halving event happened back in April of last year, so 18 months from then is actually around October this year. I mean, just let that sink in. We're not even 1 year removed yet from the last Bitcoin halving event, so I still think that the journey is still very far here. And I get it, things aren't doing the best, but if anything, I think it's like a second opportunity for me to scoop up, because if you take a look at KDA, the price as of right now is very similar to the point in which it had that pretty decent pump. So really, if I can accumulate more at a lower price, why not? I don't think it's a bad thing, at least personally for me. Now, I can't speak on anyone's behalf, but that's just the way to take a look at it. KDA has dropped so much in low in price to the point that now $25 is around a 54x from here. Over a 50x? I mean, wow, really. Even according to Charles Hoskinson, who is the co-founder of Ethereum and the founder of Cardano, he does predict that in the next 1 to 2 years, he could very well see Bitcoin reaching anywhere between $250,000 all the way up to $500,000. So again, a year from November, best case scenario Thailand, that's November this year. Allegedly, Bitcoin reaching anywhere between $250,000 to $500,000, yet again, according to Charles Hoskinson. It's no guarantee. No one has a magic crystal ball to tell the future, at least that I've seen or I've heard of. But even despite that, when Charles Hoskinson says something like that, I'm going to pay attention because I do believe that this board is far from over. Keep in mind, there's over 600 million crypto owners as of right now, according to Crypto.com research. With that sheer amount of crypto owners, with that many, right? Again, basically double the amount that we saw when compared to the peak of the 2021 born. Again, with this many crypto owners, 500 million, is the most recent peak really the peak? I have a hard time believing that. This really reminds me of back in 2021. Take a look back then, that year, right? If that, moment in time we saw, let's say around March or April, during that time, things seemed a little bit boring. Who knew that months later, Dogecoin was going to reach over $80 billion in market cap. Shiba Inu was going to reach around $40 billion. Who knew that ADA was going to eventually go to the price of around $3 a number of months later? I don't think 95% of the crypto owners at that time foresaw that, right? I don't think they foreseen something like that. Now, probably some of the fans did, but I'm just saying, I don't think generally that was the consensus. So I think that as of right now, it's kind of reminding me of that time, but I think better days are ahead. And again, KDA at the price of $25 wouldn't surprise me whatsoever during this board. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. Greatly appreciate it. It's Bellini the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.